Hello and welcome to the Pandaverse. I'm Elgon, the E and C and E, and we got Christine Gabriel.
Hi guys.
And today we're going to talk with Jeff Messick. Jeff's got a book coming out in probably about 10 days. Is that about
Yeah,
right? Yep.
that is
10.
correct.
It's the second book in his Mage Hunter series. This one's called Priest Hunter. It's fantasy. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeff.
I'm a husband and father. I live in South Central Texas. It's roughly 72 degrees outside in the middle of winter, which is ridiculous. It should be a lot colder.
You want some of what we're getting? Because I've got a snowstorm going on right now, man.
Bring it. Just bring
Okay,
it.
ready? The gust size, is it snowing?
No.
So sorry, didn't work this time.
Yeah, it's in the 50s here, so.
Yeah, just got a new job recently. I'm about to go full-time instead of contractor. Really happy about that, which will give me some more time to do some more book writing. And I really got to get started on book 4 because I've got one chapter done. That's it. But book 3 is completely done, so we're ready to go with that one as soon as Zero's ready.
Your book's got magic in it. There's like
You could say that.
two types of magic. There's priest magic, and there's I don't know what you would call the other magic, but it's handled by a different part of the magic wielder's body. So you have a mage who was one of the mage hunters in the previous book. His name's Jace,
Hmm.
and he's the main character. And you have Amicus, who's like his half brother or step brother or something like that.
He's an orphan he found and became he took him in as his ward.
Right. They're on a quest to find Jace's father, who was a warrior priest, and Jace's father's name's Angus, and those are the principal characters. Other than you have a character named William Nogle, which we'll discuss the origins of that. Yeah, he has a bit part, but he's kind of important to it.
Yep. Look for him in book 3 as well.
That's good. I like the character.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of feisty.
Yeah.
Feisty is always good.
So you're gonna give us a little sample of it today?
Yeah, just come on.
I do not have it in front of me. And since my other computer is pretty much dead to the world right now,
Okay.
sorry to say I can't.
We'll go sans sample then.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, I can give you a synopsis of it and how it fits into the entire story process too, if you want.
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead and do
absolutely.
that.
All right, the series starts with Mage Hunter, where you discover Jace Kenrick, who's at 7 years old, has been gifted with tremendous magical power. He just doesn't know how to control it. He's been told not to use it because there are people in the world, an organization called Mage Hunters, and they go out and they find people who are using the power against the will of the god. And if you're found to be using that power against the will of the god, you are terminated. No questions. It just happens. So young Jace is pressed into the academy, which is a school that teaches control and also teaches you to go hunt other mages and kill them, where he meets his future wife, Liana, and he also meets his group of friends. And together, through the Book of Mage Hunter, they overthrow the academy and stop the whole idea of mage hunting and bring it back to the school and center of learning it was meant to be. And that was all of book 1. And the main point of Jace's character is he needed to learn control and he needed to learn how to be a leader. And he kind of takes it too far because all of his friends are advising him to do one thing and he completely does something else with a young boy he discovers that nearly kills him, Amicus. He finds a way to take the boy's power away and take it into himself, almost like a magical vampire. And as soon as he does it, everybody is saying, you can't do that. It's wrong. It's not the way it's supposed to be done. But he did it anyway. And his future wife is telling him, you you have to give it back, or he just needs to be terminated. And Jace he's tired of all the killing. The whole thing that mage hunters were, he wants to end that. So he decides that his friends were right. You can't just take it away. So he gives a portion of it back to Amicus so he can learn how to use it and control it so it doesn't overwhelm him, so that because whenever Amicus has the power, he hates. It's like a mental problem, which will be investigated later in the books. But that was pretty much it. Mage Hunter. Priest Hunter comes along. You find out that Jace's father, Angus, used to be a warrior priest for the Church of Arn. And the one thing about the warrior priests is when you are a warrior priest, you are never allowed to leave. That is your duty for life. But Angus left. He got married, he had a son, and he has his life. He spends his time baking with his wife, and he's happy. When Jace is at the academy overseeing a few things that he has to do at the beginning of the book, he comes back, his father is gone. He's been pressed back into service as a warrior priest to the Church of Arn. And Jace, along with Amicus, decide they're going to go to the city of Elorion, which is where the Church of Arn is, and get him back. Very simple. One of the subpoints of this book is a discussion of when do you use magic? Do you use it only when it's necessary? Do you use it only when it's an emergency situation? Or can you use it to do everyday things? Because Amicus is lazy, or so it seems. He likes to use magic for everything because it makes everything easier. And Jace is more like, figure out mundane ways to do things. And that's how a lot of the book is based on that. The leader of the church, his name is Morvain, and he's the one that pressed Angus back into service and put him into jail because he wants Jace. He wants Jace's power. Because now that it's known how to take power away from someone and give it to somebody else, he wants it. But along the way, they run into another warrior priest. His name is William Nogle, and we'll get to that later. But William Nogle used to be very fast friends with Jace's father, Angus. And when he learns that Angus is back, then that sets a few other things in motion because they were the best of friends and they would do anything for each other. And that becomes important later. His father does not want to be rescued because he's afraid that Morvain will come after the family. Kill his wife, kill Jace, kill everybody just to get to Jace. And Jace doesn't seem to understand that as far as Angus is concerned. So Angus is going to sacrifice himself to stay in prison for the rest of his life so his family can be safe. The whole thing with magic in this book is the fact that mage power is the power. Priest magic is different because priest magic is the power also. It's just used differently. And mage power has almost no effect on priest power. So when Jace is using all of his vaunted might and he has so much power and it does nothing, he has to learn how to get around it. So this book is about a different way that the power is used, a different way that power is accessed and stored within a person. And it all goes towards the last book in the series when a lot of things are going to make sense on how the power works. At least that's the plan. We hope that we get there and get it right. So, but that's basically it for Priest Hunter.
Nice. That was a really good recap there, Jeff.
I've been practicing.
I could tell.
Yeah, Morvain's a bad guy.
Yeah.
His name sounds like a bad guy.
It just happened in the shower.
It's kind of self-descriptive, too, because he's more vain than anybody else.
You caught that, did you?
He's more vain. He probably thinks this book is about him.
There's Arn, who gives the gift of priest power to the priests.
Mm-hmm.
And it's believed that Arn also gave the magic power to the mages. But there's a character in there, and I have trouble pronouncing her name. But she tells Jace that the power actually comes from Kyrene,
The lost goddess of magic.
Lost goddess of magic. So there's kind of a dichotomy of the magic world between...
Well, yeah, but it's also important because Jace is learning that, Arn isn't the all. I mean, there is a pantheon of gods, and he was completely unaware of it. The world is unaware of it. So it's kind of interesting. And it'll all be cleared up by book 5, too, which, by the way, the title is God Hunter.
So they're in quest of God, as we all are.
Yeah, kinda. You could say that.
Or they're in quest to be God.
Hey, Christine, stop being a writer. No, the big bad guy over the entire series is going to come out of left field, and if I do it right, nobody's going to know it until it happens.
Ooh.
And I'm working really, really hard to make this right.
Well, as long as the big bad guy, it doesn't turn out to be William Nogle.
No, it's not. William Nogle's cool. He's a good man. Cheers. Do you want to get to that next?
Yeah, that's kind of a funky story in a way.
Yeah, Pandamoon was nice enough to give us all a monthly training on marketing and all the necessary details for book sales and things like that. And our dear friend Elgon here suggested, hey, it'd be nice to have Easter eggs in people's books, to point out to other things and things like that. And I just remember saying, that's already done. Because if you take the name William Nogle and you spell Nogle backwards, you get our esteemed Elgon Williams.
Elgon.
Wait a minute. What?
You didn't get that?
No.
I was telling Jeff a story about when I was a kid, and my mother wanted to write my name on my underwear. I don't know why. I mean, she's not going to confuse. I was the only boy in the family. How's she going to confuse my shirts with my sisters?
She wasn't judging your proclivities.
But she used a magic marker and wrote my name on some of my shirts. And one day I got up, to go to school and wasn't really paying attention. I threw on one of the shirts that she had done, but I put it on backwards and put the rest of my clothes on. Well, this was like the 7th grade, 8th grade. We had physical education class that day, so I take off my street clothes, leave my shirt on and my t-shirt on, and put on my gym shorts, and I go trotting out to line up for physical education, and everybody starts calling me Nogle because they see the name on the back of my shirt that's backwards because I had it wrong side out. So I went by Nogle for a while until that kind of the way you deal with people teasing you. I discovered in school the way you deal with people teasing you is you ignore them, and it eventually goes away. That lasted for a little while. So not only were they teasing me about my name anyway, but now they're teasing me about my name being backwards. Fast forwarding years later, there's my first publisher wanted me to help with a children's book because he thought that I should write a children's book as a preface to all the stuff that all the world building I was doing for the Wolfcats. I was still out on the fence with that, but that's actually the origin of the first book in the Wolfcat series.
Really?
I tried to write a children's book and failed. One of the authors that I kind of knew, I'd met him, but he was the author of the children's book, and I figured this is like a 10-page book, So yeah, okay, I'll help edit it. I mean, I'm not a great editor or anything. I'm a writer. But I figured a children's book, I can figure out if something's a simple sentence or not, right? So he sends me the manuscript, electronically, and the thing's like 120 pages. Well, it was about 100 pages then. After we edited it, it was about 120 pages. But I went through it and I fixed everything, and I sent it back to the publisher, and I said, the only thing is I don't think the story arc's exactly right in it. I mean, if I was writing it as a novel, it would have to have, a little more conflict in it. It would have to have a little more thing. And he said, why don't you write your ideas down and figure it? Now, I don't work that way. So I wrote like 3 more chapters to the book, to give the idea of where the story arc should go, and sent it back to him, thinking that, he's going to show this to the author, and the author's going to read through it and get some ideas and write, things on his own. Well, he didn't do that. He took my 3 chapters and put them in the middle of the book, sends it back to the original author, And of course, the original author got upset that somebody else is writing on his book. I mean, naturally, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't my intention at all. But he stuck with his guns, and the other author went through and kind of fine-tuned it and tweaked it a little bit, what I'd written. And then it all got sent back to me, and I looked at everything and made sure I was okay with it. Well, the publisher wants to give me editing credits for it, and I didn't want editing credits because I'm not an editor. He was fairly insistent about it. Well, you did all this work. I need to put you on the copyright page as the editor. And I said, no, I don't want to be associated with it, not. And he goes, well, then, give me a pseudonym or something for it. And I said, fine, put it as Billy Nogle.
Oh, look at you.
So I told Jeff that story, and Jeff remembered it.
I can see that.
It was a good story, but this is to put this character in.
Yeah, this character
is not teasing
like
at all. Yeah,
this
well,
nothing like me.
It is not teasing either. It is in your honor, sir.
Aww.
Well, I appreciate that, but
don't get yet, Christine. Your turn's coming. I do need a bad guy for book 5.
Oh, keep this face in mind.
She could be like a wicked witch.
Oh, by the way, her name is Felicent.
Oh, Felicent. That's how you pronounce it?
Yep.
Okay.
Another name that came out of the shower. A lot of things happen in the shower. It's weird.
I get moments like that.
We all try singing, but we're not good singers. So.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm a great singer.
Well, when singing went by the wayside, I decided, you know what? Let's try working on books in here. It worked out a lot better.
Bath crayons to write a synopsis on the shower wall.
And then the wife gets all upset.
Walks in there and be like, what is this?
Clean that up.
I've always wondered how you made the shift from, your first book with Pandamoon was a paranormal detective mystery.
Correct.
It was an interesting story. It's a good read. It's a good story. I recommend it for anybody that hasn't read it. And it's a if you're into mysteries, it's a good story.
It's a really good book.
Thank you.
It's about a police detective and the ghost of an ancestor that team up to solve a mystery, a murder mystery, a serial killer type thing. That's called.
And it's wrapped around an election, which is so apropos right now.
Yeah. It's titled Knights of the Shield. Mm-hmm. It's been available for a few years. That was your first book. How did you make a shift from writing that type of book to writing? I mean, your book's kind of borderline epic fantasy now. So
yeah,
I hope epic can go in the name. That is exactly what I'm trying to get to. But I look at the Wheel of Time and it's like, wow.
I would say it is, and I don't know. I really like writing like this. I mean, I liked your first book, but I really like these books. But I love magic. Look at my background. Office. I love magic. Mm-hmm. So, and I just think you do it well. So
thank you. Well, to answer the question, you have to understand where Knights of the Shield came from. I took a writing class, and the teacher of the class, the final paper was the first chapter of your new murder mystery. So that's what I did. And then it was the best in the class as far as he was concerned, so he gave me a free course. So I went on to the advanced writing course that he taught. His name is Larry Cruz, by the way. He wrote some mystery novels. But in that other one, I started to continue the story, and it was the idea for Richard came along, and suddenly things really started to make sense. So I went with it. So it's not exactly what I wanted to write, but it worked out perfectly because it was an assignment that turned into a project. So that worked out. My first love has always been fantasy. I read The Lord of the Rings so many times that I ripped the pages out by accident. I mean, it was just, I think 27 times last time I counted, I've read that series.
It would be interesting reading that series with the pages out of order.
Yeah, So my mom's from Denmark, and my dad was assigned to Germany, and we would go every Christmas and every summer. We'd drive up to Denmark and stay a couple of weeks. And I would get bored, so I read Lord of the Rings, and never read The Hobbit very often, but the Lord of the Rings was just awesome, and that is my first love. Now, being a writer, I came out with the first book that's a paranormal crime drama. Then now I'm doing fantasy, which is, I feel, where I belong. But the paranormal is calling to me. And if I can get an illustrator, because the last one I talked to backed out on me, if I can get an illustrator, I have Fallen Angel Detective Agency ready to go. I just need an illustrator. I want to make a graphic novel. I want to open the doors for Pandamoon to go into graphic novels too. So that'll be back to paranormal with a fallen angel running a detective agency. And it's the way I have this character run. It is noir mystery of the like the 50s and 60s. The guy wears a fedora. He wears a trench coat and all that. But it's in modern times, and it deals with the paranormal. Demons and devils. It's so much fun to write. I'm sitting there typing and I'm laughing at the same time. So, but yeah, that's basically it. I belong in fantasy, but I'm starting to really love the paranormal too. And there's a sci-fi book coming in the future too. So I'm busy.
Well, you're just a man of many faces, Jeff.
Well, you can rest assured. You can rest assured there is no romance novel coming out of me.
I don't know. You never know.
I know.
When I was growing up, I have two older sisters, but the sister who's 4 years older than me, her name's Jeanette. She had read Lord of the Rings for high school. Mm-hmm. So we had the trilogy in the house, but I'd never read it. And she also had Harvard Lampoon's Lord of the Rings, which is a parody. Yeah. And I'm looking at, because she told me I should read Lord of the Rings, and I'm looking at 3 books that are thick. And, I wasn't a real big fan of reading thick books. And I'm looking at Lord of the Rings, which is a much thinner book. And I said, maybe I'll read that. So I read Lord of the Rings before I read Lord of the Rings. And, after reading Lord of the Rings, which is a hilarious book, I mean, it's a Lampoon book, but, I'm laughing at it because it's funny situations, but I have no idea what the real trilogy's about. So I'm missing all the parody elements of the story, which is the whole point of the book. So I said, well, maybe this book, The Hobbit, which is supposed to be like a children's book that introduced the whole thing, maybe I'll read that first. So then I read The Hobbit, and then I ended up reading the other 3 books in the trilogy. And I took a science fiction and fantasy literature class when I was in college. And of course we had to read Lord of the Rings in there. Well, I've already read it, but I had to read it again to, refresh my memory because it's been a few years. That was a crazy experience. For somebody who struggled with reading when I was young, to go through a course in college where you're assigned to read Lord of the Rings, Dune, and about 16 other novels.
Wow. In
the course of a semester. Okay. I mean, I was crazy to take that class, but I actually made it through the class. Mm-hmm. And, I found out that I really liked literature a lot. So I took medieval art and literature of England, where we read Beowulf in Old English.
That's a brain scrambler, isn't it?
Well, it's like reading German. But after that class, I found out that I could actually struggle my way through written German. Mm-hmm. It's just the spellings are a little different.
Just a tad.
Just a tad. So, but yeah, Lord of the Rings is definitely a gateway for people who want to discover fantasy.
That was not my dog.
That was Christine's dog.
Yeah. The other 2 series I will always remember, and there's actually a shout out in Mage Hunter to that series, is Raymond Feist's Magician series. Yeah. That was 15 books at the end. It was 15 total books, and they were just a lot of what was it? Wheel of Time is very, very good, but it tends to start being like beating a dead horse in some cases. The Magician series never did that because it was so epic. It covered like 500 years and only the two main characters remained throughout. But it was just every book had something different and you just kept caring about the characters. It's just so well done. And it's my favorite fantasy book of all time. So I put a little shout out and Mage Hunter to it. I love The Wheel of Time too, even though there's a lot of excess in there that I don't think needs to be there. But it is a tremendous story. I mean, and I think it really does beat Lord of the Rings. I mean, Lord of the Rings touched on it with their giant, outside of Minas Tirith, the war that was going on there. He got into that, but I think he could have gotten a lot more into it. And that's it, like the final battle scene in Wheel of Time is an entire book of a battle. It floors me, anybody who has the skill to do that. It's amazing.
Yeah, we had a conversation kind of about that, about writing an epic battle scene. I mean, I spent 6 months writing a battle scene in the Wolfcat Chronicles. There's a lot. There's a lot of challenges to writing a battle scene and making it realistic and suspenseful. And when you have multiple characters participating, that complicates everything too. And, you know, in like Priest Hunter, you have Jace's is primarily the person who's going against Morvain. So you have a battle scene between two magical beings. When you have a physical war going on, and there are some people who have magical powers participating in it, adds an entire layer of complexity to it. And when the enemy is demonic, you know, and you have all these other creatures that have varying degrees of magical power and partially human, partially animal creatures that are going at it, which is what I had to deal with in the Wolfcat books. Yeah, it takes 6 months to write a battle scene, and
it took me
working on it every day.
Yeah, I'd say it took me about maybe a month to a month and a half to finish the battle scene in Mage Hunter because I needed to get it right because. And you know, actually, truthfully, I don't think I pulled off the end the way I wanted it to because I wanted like the headmaster who was the leader of the school who had no magic himself, but he elects to end his own life because his last desperate measure is to try to color Jace as a murderer. And I think I kind of dropped the ball on that one because it did not come out right at all. But it still worked. It just wasn't the way I wanted it completely.
Well, sometimes you find out that how something comes out in a book is not the way that you thought it was going to be to begin with. But then
don't you hate it when your characters disagree with you?
Yeah, they're just so unruly and they do their own thing.
It happens frequently.
All the time.
But what ends up happening is later down the road, you find out that that's the way it had to be. You know, so authors who try to guide the book too much end up with something that feels forced when a reader reads it. That's what I've discovered. And if you let the characters tell you the story and you follow what they're telling you to do, the story ends up turning out a lot better. It's smoother.
Yep, absolutely.
So, I know people who write by outlines and have, you know, the lines like on a police storyboard wall where they're trying to track down who did what and everything. And interrelationships. I know people who create things like that to write. I mean, Laura Ellen Scott does that. And, you know, having read her books, she probably needs to do that because her books have very complicated relationships between the characters.
It brings a whole new meaning to the word complexity.
Yeah. And, you know, my books are complicated too, but the characters are nice to me. They tell me what's complicated about it. And I found that if I have dialogues between the characters and let them present the story that way, I can go back and fill in the details.
Well, that's pretty much what I try to do too. If you notice, both with Knights of the Shield and this entire Mage Hunter series, a majority of the book is dialogue.
And dialogue tends to be more compelling from a reader's perspective.
Yep.
So the book drives itself, as it's going, because it's inherently more interesting to listen to people talk and
Right.
tell you the story than to have a narrator, an omniscient narrator go through and say, okay, this is going to happen, and this is what happened next, and this happened next. And I mean, the book becomes longer because you're having to have the characters tell the story through dialogue instead of a narrator just glossing over 15 years that happened.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason I got through Lord of the Rings the first 2 times, because I was young at the time when I read them. But I got through it because I skipped all the prose and went straight to the dialogue. And I just got the gist of the story there. And then later on, as I got older, I read the whole thing several times. But the dialogue is what got me through it in the beginning.
You know what the best gift I ever received was? A Hobbit-sized book of The Hobbit. It was just my size.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, like this big?
It was that big.
Do you remember those single-serving cereal boxes?
Yeah.
It's about that size, right?
It's about that size.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think they still make those.
Yeah, they do.
I love those.
I never understood that either. They make those, where you have like little perforated things in the cardboard, and you have to break them open and peel it back, and then peel the inner wrapper and pour the milk in on the cereal. But then they also have these bowls that have the cereal portion already in there, and you peel back the top of it and pour the milk in, which is much easier to deal with. Why don't you make both?
Yeah.
Tradition.
A guy I used to work with, the district manager came in, was walking the store, and we had like a big influx of customers all of a sudden. And so the managers got called to the front so that the head cashier and the assistant head cashier could jump on registers. And one of us also jumped on a register, one of the managers, because we had like 6 assistant managers in that store. And, 2 were in training at the time. Well, the district manager comes up front, and we've been going at it for like 20 minutes. And we're still busy. We still have like 10 customers to a line, and every register's open, and he's kind of freaking out, and he comes up front, and I'm running the front end, and he comes over to me, and he goes, is there anything I can do? And I said, well, I'll give you my keys if you want to run the front end while I jump on a register. And I said, other than that, I'm not sure what you could do for us. And he goes over then, and of course, being a district manager, he sees it all as a failure of the store. So he goes over and he's looking at one of the other assistant managers who's standing up there. He's one of the guys in training. He's almost finished with his training. And he walks over to him and he goes, why is it that you guys are trying to run the store this way? And he goes, it's tradition.
Yeah, I can tell you're not working at Walmart because you said all the registers were open.
Yeah. Well, it was Home Depot, and Home Depot used to actually run the store that way, where it was an urgent matter of trying to get the registers open. That was before you had self checkouts, which are ridiculous. Yep. I mean, back in the day when Bernie Marcus ran things, we didn't have aisle markers at the end of the aisles, telling people what was in the aisles.
What's in there.
Because Bernie Marcus said, if your people are doing their job, they're going to walk up to the customer and ask the customer what they're looking for, and they're going to walk the customer to where the product is. So you don't need the aisle markers. The aisle markers are a way of getting rid of sales help in the store. True.
To give you something else to look forward to, like I said, book 3 is done. Our publisher, on several times that I've talked with her, has told me several times that one of her favorite things in the world are zombie stories. So look for Rogue Hunter, because it's full of them.
Oh,
And I did that.
He's
I
so
did that.
happy.
I did that just for her. So hopefully she'll
Oh,
read it and I'll hear what she says.
she's
So
gonna love that. That'll
and
put a smile on her face.
I hope so. And actually, it's Mage Hunter was good. Mage Hunter was so much better than Knights of the Shield. Priest Hunter's better. Rogue Hunter may be the best one of the series so far.
That's how it's supposed
I'm
to be.
I'm really, really proud of Rogue Hunter. So
Aw, you should be.
Mhm.
You should
And-
be, man.
and if King Hunter comes out the way I want it to, it's going to be ooh. I get chills.
You can't deny it.
Right.
Just thought I'd throw a little grease up in there.
Yeah, that'll work.
You should write a book hunter.
Yeah. Actually, I was watching. If you guys are watching on CBS All Access, they're doing a reimagining of Stephen King's The Stand.
I know.
And I was watching that last night and going over to my parents' house this morning. The idea for a book invaded my head, and I'm like, no, I don't have any more room. So I'm gonna have to. I use there's a place online called Noteapp, Noteapp, and it's a giant cork board, and you can put Post-it notes on there. So I'm gonna have to go there and start putting this idea down because this one's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be fantasy also. So
good.
Well, you could use Scrivener and put some note cards on Scrivener.
Scrivener, the note cards are there, and I use them exclusively when I'm writing the story because I use Scrivener. I use Noteapp to keep those floating ideas that haven't actually started as a project yet. And it's also where I'm keeping all of my Fallen Angel stuff too.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
all the stuff you would put on Post-it notes, but you don't want to lose the Post-it notes.
right. And besides, if I used all the Post-it notes, I wouldn't have to use any paint in my house. Hey.
This is my study. Walking there, the Post-it notes are all.
I'm gonna get some neon pink ones and some
I'm
glitter.
going to have to see what the wife thinks about that. I'm betting the answer's going to be no.
Here's your Shark Tank idea.
Right?
There you go. Post-it note paint. That'll work.
Heck yeah.
Shingle the wall.
Yep. But yeah, if there's anybody out there who can find me an illustrator, please let me know. No money up front. It's all going to be off of sales of books, but I do have a publisher.
The best publisher in the world, everybody.
Yes. And you can contact me at the links down below.
Panda for life.
Yep.
Hey, we're the originals, right?
We're the A-listers.
Yeah.
We're the A-listers.
We just got Michelle Bellin and Elise Goldimer. Yeah.
Elise, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Yeah, it's like every day she has another book coming out.
Great, man. She's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah, she's fabulous. I love Elise.
And she does it with triplets.
Yeah.
So you'll have no excuse, Jeff.
Well, my four are old enough to leave home, and all I've noticed for sure is the worry level goes way up.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I've got two that are out in the big world and two that are still at home. So my son's getting ready to look at an apartment in Toledo. He's going to be out on his own. I don't know how I feel yet about it.
He's ready.
He's
ready. So you turn from mom into best friend and advice giver.
Yeah, I gave him my Salisbury steak recipe earlier today.
There you go.
Gonna make
I have spent 20 years making sure my daughter understands that she can talk to me about anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's difficult sometimes, but I love her to death and I'll be there for her always.
No.
So.
Yeah.
And then they hit you with something and you go, gee, I don't know.
So true.
Yep.
How can you say that, Dad? You know everything. No, I don't.
Oh, no, I got that one covered. They asked me, do you know everything? I said, of course I know everything. Well, what's going on in China? I said, the things that happened in China that are supposed to be happening in China are happening in China.
It's like Vegas. What happens in China stays in China.
Mm-hmm. What are they having for dinner in Germany? Whatever they're eating.
And that's got a side of sauerkraut.
Yep.